Hello, welcome to the show. It is me, your, I was going to call myself your humble host, but I don't think somebody that does 3 podcasts a week can call himself humble. So I am your host, Murder X Brian, as I am known on Twitter. And I'm here, baby. I'm here to take your calls, all you ghouls and goblins. And we do have room in the queue this week. If people don't start fucking calling, I'm gonna get off early, but you know what, it's gonna be nice. And I'm seeing Bruib, B-R-U-I-B, in the chat saying Bing Wah. Now I don't know what that is about, but I will say this. Somebody told me you can get, well, see, I made it sound like way fucking smarter than I made it sound way fucking smarter, but somebody said that you could get money, and this person is Bubba the Love Sponge, that said that you could get money if you use Bing. So I decided that I was going to start using Bing. So I never use new apps. I'm using all the same. He does, but Sex J in the chat said Bubba always has a way to make money. He does. Hey, I don't know why he doesn't have any. So I don't know if he's the best guy for me to go by, but he did tell me, not me personally, but he did say on his show, if you use Bing to search, they will send you money. So I fucking was like, I'll just put Bing on my phone, and then copy, I can't say that, but go ahead and call in about being a labor organizer. We like talking about that, or I do. But Bubba like said that you could do it, so I decided to do it. And what I did was, since I've never been able to talk myself out of using the same apps I've been using forever, like I use let me see here. I use Twitter, the Gmail app. Sometimes when I'm searching the Reddit app, it'll say switch to the app, and I'm like, fine, whatever. And then AccuWeather, and then texts. Like I don't. Oh, YouTube Premium, obviously. That's a work thing though. YouTube Premium. I got to use it for Shocktober, which we're in the middle of right now. Or we're getting close to the end. We got Mancow this week and wrap up next week. Yes, we're bringing a wrap up back. I think you're just gonna get. I don't know who the guest is this week. It might just be me and Chris, but I have got a fresh batch of Mancow lies that I think are some of my favorite shit ever. Like, I love Mancow lies, and brother did he lie. I mean, this fucking guy has been lying and lying and lying. And I'll just give you a quick Mancow lie. He did meet the Dalai Lama this year. So through Johnny Depp. He met the Dalai Lama through Johnny Depp. I think he's decided that Johnny Depp is now like a conservative icon, because I don't think he knows what happened between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. That I don't actually haven't heard him explain what he thinks happened. But he is so into Johnny Depp. He hates Amber Heard. And that is just what that's one of the things he's into. But I got lies about why he didn't take Stern's place after Howard Stern left, which, let me tell you, it's an incredible lie. It is one of my favorite lies he's told. Not as good as it's hard for me to talk about my favorite lies without mentioning that, you know, him talking to people before they die is actually my favorite lies. Like Jake Chinatown in the chat says, I bet you could get Mancow on for like a free burrito. So here's what I'm thinking about doing. And this might not happen this year because I'm a coward, or I'll have Chris do it because Chris is not afraid to ask people. I think I want to give Mancow. I think I want to see if I can give Mancow 5 minutes without me on the show to talk to a bunch of communists, which would be the listeners of the show, to like try to convert our listeners into Mancow listeners. And I thought, man, that would be like an incredibly funny thing, even just to hear him like explain what he thinks communism is. Because I've been having a lot of trouble trying to figure out what he thinks communism is. Because I've been thinking about it, and I think he just thinks communism is like Chinese. He never really says anything that is communism. Every time he brings it up, it's just like a Chinese thing. So I don't know. I don't know if he knows the difference between Chinese and communism, but I do think it would be extremely fucking funny to let him try to talk our listeners into turning whatever he is. Nobody knows what the fuck he is. It's terrifying. Hey, Rocky 4 in the chat, how are you? It is going to be a year, and yes, a wrap-up show this year. Bob and Tom truly made me sick. I hate those men, and I have more audio that made me dislike. I didn't even play the worst audio because I was sort of afraid. One of the things about this season that's been weird is that like I was kind of scared that people who like Bob and Tom would listen to the show, because they were like, it's not one of the things where it's like, okay, so it's not a show that people hate. It is a show that people have really strong feelings about, if that makes sense. Like they listened to it with their dad. They were out there, like they heard it at work, at their first job. They have like a feeling that they like associate with Bob and Tom. People really seem to like those guys. And you know, for years I've been calling them harmless, which is why they never got an episode. I hadn't given them any thought. I hadn't considered that they stink until I listened. And then the first thing I ever heard was the Bushback Mountain thing. Oh, I haven't heard Donnie Baker yet. But the Bushback Mountain thing, which was Bushback Mountain was the one that just opened with a guy saying, if you like Brokeback Mountain, you're queer. And it's like the craziest shit in the world. Like these guys were saying some like really fucking edgy stuff, and then people were like, hey, you can play it on the school bus. It's like, no, none of the stuff I played should have been played on the school bus. So just a real funny like kind of people. But I have this week too. My daughter got laid off and cried, which is, that's crazy. But I guess it's your first job. You know what I mean? You get laid off. And she was bummed. And I think it's a funny thing. I'll bring this up. It's like this funny 18-year-old outlook on life where I said, hey, why don't you go apply at one of the other 87 coffee shops in our neighborhood? I mean, we live in a high coffee shop neighborhood. I think that's why I moved here, was all the coffee shops. I didn't drink coffee, but I had heard that coffee shops are where cool people go. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna move here and learn to drink coffee. So I did. I told her she should go, and I told her she should go apply at the other place. And she said, oh, I know, but my friends, I'm gonna miss my friends at my job. And it's like, bro, you're gonna miss your friends. Like this is gonna happen to you a million gajillion times, and it's sad. But I guess like they closed. So what happened is they closed another store in their like thing. And those people that worked at that store got to come to my kids store, and now it's done. It's like kind of they fired all of the teens that they had hired to open the store at the beginning, but they were like, hey, can you come in to work like for the next 2 weeks just while they're closing the other store? And like, I don't think, in my mind, I don't think that anybody would ever ask an adult to do that. I don't know. If you're in the chat or you're on the phones or anything like that, you let me know. I've never heard an adult ask to work once they're fired or laid off. I've never heard that. I mean, she did. She's a good kid. She's nice. But people were like, oh, she should steal. And I don't think she stole, but she did bring me home those tablets that you put in the dishwater at work to clean the flavors and stuff out for my water bottle. So I'm like incredibly over the moon for that. I am glad she got that and brought it to the house. And now I have that. So happy about that. Not happy that they fired her. I think it fucking sucks. I think it sucks to like tell these teenagers like, yeah, you're just like not as important. And I think that's why they hire teenagers, by the way. Like I think that a lot of the teenagers getting hired is because you can lay them off and they'll come to work. You can lay them off and ask them to come in, and then they will come in because they don't want to fuck over the other workers, which is great. You know what I mean? Like I feel the solidarity thing, but it is like weirdly playing on this kind of strange loyalty that you're supposed to have, but nobody has. So I don't know if you're I don't know if you've ever been laid off. Alexander Cheney in the chat said they laid off a large number of people at the factory where my brother works, including him, and have expected them to keep coming in for the next 9 days as normal. Like, how do you fucking say that to somebody? I've never had this happen in my life. I get laid off, and maybe they just figured, like, if I ask Brian to come in when he's laid off, he'll tell me to eat shit. That's the best thing that I could think of. And right. Alexander in the chat says, and he has to because he needs the money. And that is like a really good point too, right? Is that like she's trying to get as much money as she can out of the place. But it was interesting because I posted that on chat, like about she's trying to get the best, the most money out of the place, and they're like, but they're getting the most money out of her too. And it just, I've never heard of it. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of the impulse to make people, not make people, they couldn't make them, but she worked a fucking double the week they laid her off. Took her picture off the wall and put it back what they call the graveyard where all the fired pictures are. Just a real fucking real kick in the nuts to a kid. She's applying to colleges and shit, and some of them aren't even in the state, so she'd have probably had to quit anyway. But I think I never got fired in my life. I'm gonna tell you that. I think I've said that on the show. I've never been fired. I've been laid off twice. I was a roofer, and I don't even know if I really got laid off. They were like, hey, do you want to be laid off? And I said, yep. And they were like, well, you are. So that's how I got laid off at the roofing company. But as far as like all the other jobs, I've talked about this with the cable company. Like, I was fucking trying to get fired. I tried very hard to get fired there for months and months and months, and they just wouldn't do it. I think it was because they liked me. It was like I'd been there for like 6 years, so it was kind of like, well, the boss was like willing to put up with a little more from me. But like, I tried. I did everything you could do to get fired without, because there's obviously that minefield of like, well, you got to get fired, But you got to get fired in a certain way to get unemployment. So that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get fired in such a way that I would be fired, I would get the unemployment, and then be done. So didn't work out. Ended up quitting and just not getting unemployment, which was not great for my money situation in my home. But what are you gonna fucking do? So I think we're gonna go to the phones again. We have a couple of spots in the queue. If you want me to do this all night, you're gonna have to call in. All right, here we go. Let's take our first phone call. Well, hello there. You're our first caller tonight. Who am I talking to?
Yes, you're talking to Grayson from Orange County, California, also Fixer Punk in the chat. Thank you for taking my call tonight, Brian.
Grayson, first call. You're always the last call.
Yeah. I just had some time. I wanted to make sure that I got in sooner rather than later because I've tried afterwards and the queue's been full the weeks that I've tried. So I thought, when I have the chance, let me get in there.
Well, how you doing, Grayson? What's up?
So, I'm doing pretty well. I just had some sort of some interesting thoughts around the management of. Actually, I'll start with a real funny anecdote. I have a younger cousin, and I mentioned the name Street Fight Radio at the dinner table for some reason at a family party. This was months ago, and his sister actually said, he's like, oh yeah, he's into Street Fight Radio, and I was like, this 14-year-old is into your show, and I'm like, that's weird. And then here's funny. He said, no, I'm into Street Fighter, the video game, not Street Fight Radio.
Yeah. I wish I invented Street Fighter, Grayson. That would be great.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be doing radio though. I'm worried about Bear too, Naderoni. Let me look at the queue real quick. Bear might be on. Oh no, I don't think Bear is on the queue. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know who's who really necessarily as well.
Yeah.
What's going on? What's going on, Grayson?
I was having some sort of interesting thoughts around online mutual aid and philanthropy and kind of the obstacles around that, because I've seen a lot. I don't know why. Maybe my social media feeds have gotten a little skewed, but I've been seeing just a ton of hard luck stories, basically, of people that are seeking assistance and they're asking people to give them money online and things like that, and seeing that every system possible is failing them, and there are so many of them piling up, but it seems like they're all relatively simple fixes. Now, part of this sort of a skeptical part of my mind is like, okay, are these things for real? Are people perhaps lying online, posting this stuff? And that's why I tread extremely carefully around any of that stuff. But then I started to think about, okay, I'm also seeing a bunch of headlines, a bunch of stuff in publications around philanthropy. You see very, very large numbers thrown around very often of money that's going into very, very good causes, but it tends to be very, very technical and very specific. Like, it seems like there's an intention to help people most of the time when grants are given out from large donors or foundations, but they tend to always steer around helping people's individual needs directly. And I started to think back to a little bit of my understanding of tax law. I'm by no means an expert, but I took some tax-related courses in college and some pre-law coursework. Ultimately wound up with a degree in political science, kind of a long story. But I was thinking there may be sort of a structural thing going on in terms of direct assistance, which we know that there are some studies that are showing that providing people direct cash assistance for their needs is potentially more helpful than providing like a specific in-kind service or program, which obviously there's a need for both, but I see there's sort of like an underfunding of things that are of forms of assistance that are more flexible. And obviously in that vacuum, then you've had all these like mutual aid online groups that are anonymous, kind of difficult to verify, and things like that.
The GoFundMe stuff that like the GoFundMe stuff where it's like the or GoFundMe, there's the Venmo, there's the Cash App, stuff like that, and those are, it's very specific indictment, I think, of like the unemployment system, the welfare system. That I think a lot of the people who are and this is something I complained about on Twitter the other day about I spent $200 on college applications for my daughter this week so that she could go to school. And it's like, well, what if I couldn't afford, and I really couldn't, I don't have a ton of money, but what if I couldn't afford the $200? Like, what would happen? And somebody responded and said, well, you can get assistance. I can't. Like, there is a weird spot that most people land in that are like, wow, I could really use some fucking help. But there's none sort of there for me. And I think a lot of people fall into that spot of like, I talked about my mom a couple weeks ago, how she's on food stamps. She gets $18 a month. And that isn't food. You can't buy any fucking food with that. So she borrows $40 here, $40 there off of me to get by. And I think that's what a lot of the GoFundMes and stuff like that, the fundraising things for individuals has been too. It's like, if you get like, I'm not like trying to get a fucking service. I just need money. There isn't like a service for me for my needs. I just want money. And who has, I just always felt like, it's specifically with like food stamps and stuff too. It's like, just fucking give them the money. Like, you can just give them the money. But there is this narrative going on right now out there that like, Joe Biden gave us money, which Trump gave us money too, but Joe Biden gave us money, and that's why inflation happened. So I think that's one of the reasons people are sort of freaking out about direct cash payments.
Yeah. What I also want to bring up is, in terms of like philanthropy itself, is that even if you did not want to claim a tax deduction on it, to give people direct cash is somewhat, I guess, frowned upon in the charitable world to an extent, even though there are ways to do it, because there are certain technicalities in the tax code that I guess aren't terribly clear to a lot of practitioners. And I started to do some research on this. Again, I am by no means an expert. I'm coming onto this show here because in the chance that maybe somebody who is an expert can chime in, or someone with more experience in this. But it seems like there's a lot more paperwork involved, from a tax deductible 501c3 to give somebody a direct cash payment. You have to like document the purpose and the need, and sometimes kind of, I guess, it's sort of frowned upon, other than in terms of disaster relief. So I looked at some of the guides that are out there for mutual aid groups. A lot of them were written during COVID, and they're written around the disaster relief payment exception, with only a little bit of commentary about the other ways to do so. And then you do have, obviously, let's say, because I was thinking of this, let's say I was some kind of multimillionaire or billionaire, or I was advising one, and they wanted to help all these people with individualized needs, providing individually tailored and customized assistance to their needs for things that people, of the kind of stuff that people would post online for. And if I want to do that even without taking the tax deduction, there is a vehicle for that. You could form, and then to minimize liability, you could form a philanthropic LLC. But those, you have to make sure that the money that you're putting in and giving out is not classified as business income, because those are technically business vehicles. What it looks like is there are ways to do it, but because there's sort of an inconvenience from it from a legal perspective, it's kind of become the practice of, okay, we're never going to be able to give people cash, so What can we do instead? We can give people food. We can give people job training. We can give people certain specific items, but we cannot just and we can't just change. Like if somebody needs something that we don't offer, we can't just change the programs, the procedures because they're set in stone and codified for legal and regulatory reasons around the tax code. And this is one of the weird areas where politicians who are friendly to sort of the mutual aid model, and why I think that electoral politics can matter a little bit, is because you can, even from a presidential standpoint, I believe tax regulations around these kinds of things can be at least clarified through executive order and regulation to say, well, yes, if your organization wants to give $100 to a homeless person to help them with paying for an application fee for a place to live, and they already are in your system or whatever, and they're ready to go, then that's an acceptable use, and making things very, very clear, or at least publicizing the already existing exemptions to the community of organizations that have money or that give grants. I'm not sure how much of a behavioral change that would lead to, but it certainly could help, because you also have sort of this crisis of, like, I've seen people posting about their mutual aid groups kind of going wrong, where because all the money is going into one person's Cash App or one person's Venmo account. And I'm like, from my little experience with like entrepreneurship and business, I'm like, this should really be going into a business account. It should be going under some sort of entity so that the money can't just randomly be stolen by somebody. And
I'm not really sure. We did run a thing early on. We didn't run it, but let me be clear. This was not something we ran, but there was like within our Facebook group, there was a sort of mutual aid fund that was like a pot that people could get a few bucks out of if they needed it. We didn't want to be involved with not involved, but you know what I mean. Things can get nasty very fast when there's money. And but I just think that, like, it is one of those things that bums me out a little bit, is that, like, when I needed money for ketamine treatments, I have 35,000 followers, and they can just sort of I can make that money pretty easy. And what ends up, but like people oh, fuck, where was I at? Oh yeah, I can make it pretty easy, but people with less followers, I get the same few people every week, saying, hey, can you retweet my thing? And it's just like, we need like something for, you know what I mean? Like, we need something a little bit easier to kind of deal with, to get people. But I get what you're saying about if there was a way to have a sort of, I mean, I'm very much like, what's the word? I waffle on stuff a lot. So sometimes I'll be super inspired and really excited to take a thing on, and then sometimes I'm like, the world's always going to suck. It's just, and I'm in one of those periods right now. I'm in one of those, like, the world just sucks. It's never getting fixed. But like, I think that, like, which is a negative thing. Don't be that way. I just feel that way right now, and I'm sure it'll change at other times. But like, I feel like the only thing I feel even like doing is like, I'll donate to the GoFundMe's, I'll retweet when they get it, but like, that's only gonna work so long. That all is gonna go away. I mean, I have retweeted stuff and immediately gotten DMs like, this is a scam. And that is tough, because like, I don't know if it's a fucking scam. As a person that has a hard luck story, I'll go ahead and retweet it, because retweeting costs nothing. It's less than no money. So Acid Horizon Podcast, thank you for saying hi. I'll give a big up to you too. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So we kind of have to bring together, the way I see it is we have to bring together the world of more like conventional philanthropy and systems with the more individualized mutual aid approaches that can serve people's individual needs. And I think there is room for progress, because just to say, a few years ago when I started to like get into reading like stuff about anarchism and left forms of libertarianism, a lot of that stuff was just theory, and nobody was even talking about it. Nobody was even talking about like co-ops, and there was a lot of growth in mutual aid during COVID, to the point where even that guide that I found, I think it's by like the Sustainable Economies Law Center or something like that, exists. But now you even have mainstream social entrepreneurship conferences that are talking about co-ops as being a viable model, say in 2022, and back in 2017, 2018, when I was still in the thick of it with conservatives and reading about these things, it just seemed like it was all just theory. So I think there is hope to try to do enablement and technical assistance to these kinds of things going on in communities, and sort of bring the two worlds together, because obviously you don't want somebody who's constantly recurringly asking for money online or having to constantly receive assistance. You don't, and that points to a major systemic problem. And then that's where legislative advocacy, of course, comes into play. And if you identify a pattern in those, but I think there's sort of a need to break down silos there.
Yeah. Well, Grayson, tell people where to find your stuff. Grayson, you're a sweetie.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes, I have the Fixer Punk podcast. I haven't done an episode in like a month, so I probably need to post something new. So it's at fixerpunk.com. You can also find it on all the major platforms. My TikTok is very frequently updated with all kinds of content in this area, as well as personal and social change overall. That's also the same name, Fixer Punk, FIXERPUNK. Twitter is Grayson Nation, GREYSONNATION. Thank you so much, Brian, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you.
Yeah, have a good night.
You're welcome.
Oh, Grayson called in and talked about mutual aid. Yeah. I'd love to build a place like that where we can help people, but sometimes I just get so freaking sad. Let me answer this next call. Oh, well, hello there. Who am I talking to tonight?
Hi, this is Rory in Chicago.
Rory in Chicago. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. So I actually wanted to call in about wrestling, if that's okay.
Yes, obviously. Always. I would love to talk about wrestling.
Wonderful. So basically, I am a woman nearing 30 who this year just got into wrestling, which I had never watched as a child or anything. I was like a theater kid. And I have been realizing as this year has gone on that I basically picked like the craziest year possible to start watching wrestling. I mostly follow AEW, but like with Vince McMahon finally being ousted this summer and then Brawl Out, it's been quite a year.
This documentary about Vince, there's a documentary about Vince. I don't even know if it maybe did come out. That's something, that Vince thing is something that was like really mind-blowing to me. It was like I thought we lived in a world where a guy like that would never, and you know what, he didn't get punished. That's what bugs me too, is we're looking at this world like, oh, he got punished, he lost his company. It's like he's still a billionaire and he should probably go to jail. I mean, for several fucking things that he did, but this specifically seems like he could go to jail for it. And it is a wild year. Things have changed tremendously over. They just changed so fast. Things happen very fast, and this year has been pretty fucking wild. All I follow right now is AEW. I don't have like I haven't watched WWE in a long time. That I like the indie stuff, but what drew you to it as a theater kid? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so I like really loved musicals, especially as a kid, and I like did it very seriously all through school. And like I went to college for theater. I was like, I'm gonna be an actor, and I, came from like an upper middle class family where I didn't have to work until I graduated college, and so then I did, and I got into the real world, and I was like, oh, work sucks, including being a working actor. And the reality of that is like you have to do two full-time jobs if you want to do that as someone who isn't like a trust fund kid. And so I pretty quickly, like in the years after college, quit acting. And also like I got radicalized. And so like those first few years after college was me kind of realizing like how the world works, and going from like liberal to leftist. And so the thing about musical theater is it's so expensive to make that it ends up just being this really bourgeois art form where like you have to, it's like a movie, you have to have millions to do it for the most part. Like there are still like little indie shows that make it, but they're rare. And so as the years have gone on, I've been more disillusioned, and also like it's one of those things where I just kind of topped out, where I was like, to keep being really interested in this, it's like the only stuff that's coming out anymore is like Disney movie the musical or like 80s movie
Yeah.
the musical.
So
It's either like
so it's
Frozen or
happening.
like Pretty Woman the musical. So like I kind of was done with that, and I started seeing like gifs online of wrestling. And I honestly, hearing you mention it on the podcast a little bit, like one of the first things that clicked for me is when you said that it was improvised, because what little I'd seen of it, I was like, this fight choreography is messy, like just because I like studied that in school. But then I was like, oh, they're improvising in the moment. And also I was just like bored and lonely, and I like messaged someone I follow, and I was like, how do I get into wrestling? And they're like, oh, like my friends watch it every week on Discord, and they happen to watch AEW. And then I just got hooked.
Yeah, I am curious though. Like, so I'm going to ask about the musical theater stuff because I have never been
Mhm.
into it. Like, also feel like a couple years ago, several years ago, it wasn't a couple years ago, and I've been in New York, but I've never been to Broadway, or I've been on Broadway. Obviously, I've never seen a show though. um, there
Mhm.
was a thing, the Book of Mormon, I think, came through
Yeah.
years and years ago, and I was like, I'm gonna go see that, because I'd heard people talk about it, and this was a different Brian that was into like South Park stuff and shit. And I looked at the tickets, and they were so fucking expensive. I just couldn't
Yes.
believe it. Then I started making a little bit more money, and the Green Day one came through Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
Super expensive. And I'm like, how do people get into this? Like, how do people who don't have loving parents or money
Mhm.
to, because like, I mean, if my daughter was in the musical theater, I would have actually done it. Like I would have taken her to shows for sure.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have been because I care that she see the things she wants. My parents, on the other hand, did not give a shit or have the money for it. So it seems like it is like sort of almost like
Yep.
mirrors movies too, in a way, and that like they only make certain um like things, and it's all like just rehashing IP in that
Yep.
world too. Is this all we have in this whole world?
Yeah, exactly. So like tickets are gonna run you like $200 minimum. And so if you can't afford
Crazy.
that, and also if you don't like live in a major city where the tour comes through, or you can never afford to go to New York, you're only getting it through one, the cast recordings, like the soundtracks, and just kind of like piecing together stuff. And two, there's like this underground world of bootlegs, because a big problem with Broadway is that they could professionally film all of them and release them. Like Hamilton did that, and put it on Disney Plus, and so a bunch of people
Mhm.
have been able to see that one. But most shows don't do it, and it's like really illegal. And so there's this whole underground like sharing economy of people who like film stuff on their phone and then they put it online, but like people don't sell it to each other. They like trade it. It's this whole thing. But it's still like a phone video. And so it's not that good. And you kind of have to be hardcore to want to watch that because it's like not going to be that good quality. But that's exactly the problem. And I think that's one of the things that really interested me in wrestling was that it felt like this like performing art of the people. And like I'm going to AEW right before Thanksgiving and like I mean the fees are expensive, but still like I was able to get like for less than $50 a ticket, like with fees and everything. And like that's
you're gonna
way different than $200. Yeah, I was living in LA and so I went in June and I saw MJF do his like promo where he like called Tony Khan a fucking mark. It was wild.
I'll tell you that, like, I think that's one of the other things I sort of love about it is, like, there isn't, you don't, you know, I don't hear a lot of other sort of, I don't hear of a lot of other art forms where we don't even know at all what's real, what's fake, what is scripted. It's a very, 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 I think, it's a strange world that nothing else can exist in. Like there isn't ever going to be something like this that like we have all the facts a lot of times, most of them, and even if we have all the facts and we know this thing is true, we know this happened, we still have to have in our mind a seed of doubt. Like did they, like a perfect thing when MJF called Tony Khan a fucking mark. I mean, as far as I can tell now, that was like a scripted thing that was supposed to happen, as far as I can tell now. But at the time, it felt like, well, why would he say that on TV? But then also at the time, they edited off of TV. So it was kind of like, maybe they knew it was coming. You know, I know they run a delay, but it's just like, I don't know. There's something about, and every form of entertainment could stand to learn like some sort of like there is some sort of magic in like people only knowing you as this person. I think you know, they talk about like Daniel Day-Lewis, who runs around on the set of his movies as the character. Like it sounds fucking really annoying to me, but it's probably very effective, you know?
I don't know. As someone who's like trained as an actor, in my experience, the people who do that just, like they're just annoying to work with. Cause like to me, the best actors can drop in and out of it. And like the only times I've dealt with people who are like kind of method actors, they're really bro-y, like men who are trying to like prove their masculinity.
Like I'm an actor, but I'm also tough, like that kind of guy.
Yeah, it's like I'm so serious, I never stop doing this, and it's like no one's like grading you on that metric. Like it's more interesting to like be able to put it on and take it off. But something I wanted to tell you is I totally fucked up. You mentioned you were gonna go to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, and I was like, oh, let me tell him about this, and then the next time I listened, you were like, I'm back. And I was like, oh, shit. But there's this company called Micro Wrestling Federation out of Pigeon Forge, and it's all little people wrestlers. And it is so fun what I've seen online.
I should have gone. They come through town here sometimes. And I
was going to say they tour, so you can still see them.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing about wrestling that I think is, you know, we were talking about the prices of like going to musical theater and stuff like that. It's like, yes, you can get into an AEW show for less than $50, but you can get into an indie show for less than $20.
Yeah.
Like there are indie shows that you could go to, and people are like, oh, I want to see the big stars. It's like the indie shows are just as fun, maybe more fun.
Oh yeah,
a lot of times, you know. Somebody's talking, Crust Monk in the chat said, remember when Jared Leto was doing weird stuff to practice being the
God.
Joker. Yes, I do remember that. He's an idiot, though. Didn't he send somebody a rat or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's just as I think Allegory said in the chat, like it's never someone being a method actor to be nice. It's just like an excuse to be a dick.
Yes, you're right. You're right too. It's I can act like fucking they're always like an action star. Like none of these people
Yeah.
are ever like, I'm method acting as a shy person who is kind and wants
Yeah.
to be nice to
Yep.
so yeah, you're totally fucking, that is so funny. And it is, I wish I actually, talking to you though, currently I kind of wish I kind of wish like musical theater was as available as wrestling. I think that's
Yes.
like, that
Yeah, that's
seems
like
like
the thing
it
that
seems.
people say. They're like, if we professionally shot every musical and then like once it closes, because most of them close after a few months because it's all, they don't make enough money. But like so many more people would get into it, because one of my like hills that I'll die on is that people say I don't like musicals, and I'm like, okay, I get it. They can be really corny and cringe. I own that. However, like, did you like The Lion King? Did you like any of the Disney movies from the 90s? Because those are musicals, and like they were very intentionally written by people who are like musical theater writers and structured the way Broadway musicals are. They're just animated. And I'm like, I also think that there's a musical for everyone. Like there's actually real tangent real quick. There's this guy, Michael Friedman, who unfortunately has passed away, but he wrote this like weird sort of emo folk punk musical about Andrew Jackson called Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson that was briefly on Broadway. I think Matt Christman mentioned it as like a musical he's seen. And it's just like really cool and weird, and like definitely Hamilton would not exist without it because it was just doing something really different. But that guy also, he wrote a bunch of stuff that didn't get to be like produced before he died, and so this theater company like made cast recordings of everything he did. And before he died, he had written a Paris Commune musical, and like there is stuff out there. It's just not being produced at a high level, because like like leftist musical theater doesn't sell.
Well, it's interesting
like,
that what
you
we're,
just have to look
it's
for it. Like there's punk musicals and stuff. They're just kind of like in the shadows.
It's actually interesting because we're talking about this sort of thing that like is completely shut off from a lot of people. And
Yeah.
I'm sure their excuse, I'm sure the reason that the musicals, these Broadway shows, these plays, I'm sure that they say it's the cost. But AEW and WWE travel the country and put on shows. You know what I mean? With enormous rosters, with all the staging and all the lights and all the stuff. I know that most of it happens, in the ring or in the arena, but like, they take a bunch of people on the road too. And they're able to
really
keep
similar.
the price down. Yeah, and
yeah,
exactly. That's where you start to feel. Oh, it's where you start to feel that they're keeping you out intentionally, I guess,
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to say, is that like part of like what I think makes musicals appealing is that they are this like exclusive thing that like like East Coast rich liberals can be like, oh, like if you haven't seen Hamilton, you haven't lived, and shit like that. But like I also feel like when I tell my old friends like, oh, I'm into wrestling now, they laugh, but then they're like, actually, that does make perfect sense, because like when I explain it to my theater friends, the way I put it is that like musical nerds love to talk about how it like evolved out of vaudeville, which was this like traveling the country musical act. But since getting into wrestling, I actually really feel like they're both from the same origin and they branched off. But given how bourgeois musicals have become, wrestling is the true inheritor of the vaudeville legacy, with these performers who are like traveling the country, like selling their show. And, carny is an insult, but I also think that it is like, if you strip away the connotation, it's really accurate to what they do. And I also think like a reason people don't like musicals in addition to the cost is that like it's gay, it's feminine, it's really campy. But I also think that like wrestling is too, and it benefits from leaning into that. Sometimes like when I'm watching it, I'm like, these guys just need to take like an acting class or like a voice class, and like they'll be good. And I think honestly that's part of why MJF is so unique and really, really good, is that like he, there's sort of the thing about how he was like on the Rosie O'Donnell show when he was 5. And like, I think he was on his high school's like a cappella group or something. Like he clearly has that like very musical theater style training. Like he can sing really well. Like he knows how to enunciate his words, like, and project his voice. And like, he clearly has like on some level, some acting training, like, and those things help. Or someone like Dalton Castle, I feel like wrestling is at its best when people are like really embracing how campy it is. And like, there's a place for people like John Moxley and like the Blackpool Combat Club. Like, I think because it's about variety, and like contrasting styles make a fight really fun. But like when everyone is, and this is something I tire of with AEW, like especially as a woman, I'm like, oh my God, give us a fucking break. The women are so short. What is the word? Short shifted. But if everybody's like Blackpool Combat Club, like I'm a serious guy who likes to fight, like it gets so boring to me so quickly when like the fact that it's all about these feuds between two men. And like my high school theater teacher used to say, people only get this close to each other's faces when they're about to fight or fuck. And like when you have like a really good feud, like it's homoerotic. And like that, to me, that's just like an undeniable truth of it. And I love it when it leans into that. And like, I know musicals could learn from wrestling. And so I don't know. I just think it's this really interesting interplay.
That's interesting. Yeah. Cause I lean more on the, so the things I like the carny stuff. So I would never think of calling it carny as being like an insult, but I really enjoy the guys that go out like, okay, so in AEW there's not a lot of these guys. There's maybe one or two. But you see them a lot more on the indies. I like the guys who see how much they can get out of a little bit, like without doing all the athletic stuff. You go in there. I mean, I always tell people that like these are both very bad guys before I say this, but like if you watch that WrestleMania match between the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, they do 3 moves and the crowd is fucking losing their minds. I also think another thing that wrestlers have that other people don't is like a lot of them do come out and they're trying to get you to not like them, which is totally not anything that people do, in anything except probably theater and wrestling, like getting people to boo you and hate you and dislike you.
Is so unique.
Yeah. And I think I think that's like an incredible thing too. And so yeah, I think like obviously like I think that I like that people like the campy stuff, and as long as they can as long as they can wrestle, I'm very happy. You know what I mean? Like with Orange Cassidy, that's not like really a thing for me, but he's really good. And he won me over because I was like, I don't want to see this bullshit. And then like he ended up winning me over having matches. And like like I said, I fall on the other side of what a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, but what a lot of people around me end up liking. I mean, there are very popular wrestlers that I really like, and I like Mox, and I'm into the tough guy thing, but that's because all my life, I think there's something that you read into with this kind of stuff too. Like all my life, all I wanted to do was be a tough guy. Like that was like
Yeah.
my dream because I was 110 pounds when I graduated high school. I was really thin. I was going to all these like heavy metal concerts and getting knocked around by guys in the mosh pit and stuff like that. And it was just like, man, I'd really like to be a tough guy. So I think when I watch wrestling, I'm like, I like the tough guys, because it's what I want to do. But I can also see that like there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I like Orange Cassidy because he does something interesting. It's different. It's artistic. And I like the artistic stuff, and I like that too. Like I think it's great that people work their stuff out, and you'd be crazy if you didn't think that even like John Moxley isn't figuring himself out. You know what I mean? Like that's a character. He's a weird dude, but
yes,
I don't
absolutely.
think he's that weird. Like go around asking people to beat him up weird.
Yeah, and I think what makes him good is that like he's doing the tough guy thing, but like he still understands that it's still like a heightened, elevated performance, and that like like it is still, for lack of a better word, I keep saying it, but it's camp in a way. Like it's like everyone is always performing their gender, right? Like that's one of the ways of like looking at life, and like that includes wrestling. And so even the tough guys, like they're performing masculinity. And I think John Moxley's one of the people who's like really good at it. Like it's grounded and it's real, and it's like a tough guy who's like, it's a hard won toughness.
Been through a bunch of shit. You can kind of
see through a faker. Like he made it through to get here. And so like it feels real.
Yeah. A guy that's been through a bunch of shit. Well, I'm glad that we got you on the old wrestling side. You're watching the right company, the one I like. And I really appreciate you calling. Call back anytime.
Yeah, real quick, can I give my plug, which is that since I'm newly back in Chicago, I'm looking for like leftist wrestling friends, because I think that's a specific niche of like people who like wrestling but also like believe the world can be better, or even wrestling leftist musical theater lovers. So if that's you, hit me up on Instagram. I only use it to message, but it's Rory Bex, RORYBEX, and we can go see Freelance and AAW together.
Yeah, I know some people there. I'll try to think of somebody, but to put you in contact with. And thank you for calling.
Well, thanks so much for taking my call.
Yeah. Wrestling. Oh, this show is like for me, right? Wrestling, Mancow. I mean, what's going on here? Mutual aid. Hey, who am I talking to tonight?
It's Bear.
Bear, people were worried about you. I was worried.
I know.
Sick.
I dipped out for a couple weeks. I was busy getting some life stuff together.
Oh, moving out?
Not quite. I am working on that too, though.
That's a dick thing I just did. It's that thing where somebody's like, I was getting some of my stuff together, and then you say something that like, oh, you're moving out? No, not that. Sorry, Bear.
I mean, actually, I am. I'm working on moving out. I'm getting real close. I'm gonna go look at an apartment place tomorrow.
Okay, so I gotta ask you.
Not far from the tree.
I gotta ask you though. Nice apartment? Are you going nice? Because Bear, we know you. We've been talking to you.
God,
for
no!
2 years.
Nice apartment. No, I something that I don't know if I've mentioned before. I grew up exclusively in a tweaker pad, and my friends all lived in tweaker pads. So their only place to really go is up from where I came from.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know that like you're willing to do really rough jobs. So I do know that, and I just think it is funny for me to say, are you moving into a nice place? Are you even moving into like, new apartment? Or are you moving into the city?
I'm moving into I am moving into a more of a city, but it's not really a city either, right? It's a town. I will say that. There's stuff where I'm moving to.
Nice. I'm proud of you, Bear. I know how it is to move
Yeah.
out. So the funny thing about me, I'll tell you, is that hi Jeremy from the block. It's their first time catching Sundays live. I'm say hi. But I'm trying to say hi to the people because it's going to become a thing in a couple of weeks. So I'm trying to be like, hey, people in the chat, yes, because we're gonna start having some. We're gonna start goofing around on the old call-in show in a couple weeks. I
Oh
moved
man,
out
I'm excited
when
for some goofs.
I I didn't move out right away. Like I can't remember who it was. Okay, so my parents kicked me out when I was 19 years old. Hi, Coob Tube TV. My parents kicked me out when I was 19 years old because I wouldn't get a job because I didn't have a car. It was the whole thing. It was really unfair. I still mad at them about it. You've heard me say mean things about them on the show. Still sort of mad at them, but they kicked me out, and I moved in with a friend and his wife, which is yeesh, you know.
Yeah.
Like a 19-year-old friend with his wife and kid is what I moved into. so so I moved in with them, and I lived with them for a little bit, and then they got divorced. So I moved in with the husband.
Nice.
Got me in the divorce. He won me in the divorce. He still listens to the show. Hi Zane. He won me in the divorce. I moved in with him, and I was the most deadbeat fucking roommate anybody's ever had. And then I moved back into my parents' house. But like, me and my wife both had to move back into our parents' house. We were so fucking bum. You know what I mean? High tech Texas Street Fighter. We were so fucking bummed that we had to move back in. And what ended up happening was my wife moved in with her family. I moved back in with my family, and then she snuck me in her house every night, and I just slept there. And a funny story about that. What was that? I can give you a very funny story about that. It is she would sneak me in. Her parents and all them would go to work, and then I would leave. I would have the whole day to kind of wander around the house before I had somebody pick me up for work or something like that. But nobody was there, so everything was cool.
Right.
One day, her mom is like, calls in sick, and I'm there, and I can't get out of the fucking house because her mom is there. And I had to sit in my fucking wife's bedroom all day. I had to fucking pee too, like crazy. No cell phone, just fucking sitting and waiting for her to get home. It was like being in jail. Actually, it was really shitty. So,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
you got to move out and then hope that you don't have to come back in. Come back. That's the thing. That's what you want to do.
Well, I won't is my thing. I've been homeless before, like without my parents, and I find that preferable, honestly. So I mean, once I finally get like out of there.
Are your parents a total pain in the ass, Bear?
Oh yeah, no, dude, they're awful. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
It's to the point where like they're not really like my parents anymore. Is not how I view it. They're kind of just like really, really shitty roommates that are like paying my rent for me. Is how I prefer to view it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, my parents hated me. I actually had this thing. I went to Ozfest the first year. I went a couple times, and the one in Columbus, there was a riot. You can look it up. Ozfest 97 riot Columbus. We knocked down the fence. We flipped a couple cars, and I had a piece of the fence, and I carved in Ozfest 97 and then some of the names of the bands, and my fucking parents were like, I thought that was trash, and I threw it away, and I'm like, I hate you. I fucking hate you so much.
That fucking blows.
Yeah. It wasn't worth anything, and it wasn't like worth anything, and it wasn't ever going to be worth anything, but I probably would have that mounted on my wall now if they didn't throw it away.
The one thing that I've never hid from my parents, and I just made them get over since I've been like somewhat of an adult, is the amount of stolen property I have. I mean, people's political signs, stop signs, cones, traffic barrels, just all kinds of shit. I don't know why I can't resist taking it, and I never want to throw it out once I have it. Like the only one that they ever even bothered making a comment on was my Trump sign that I stole, and they're like, "You fucking hate this guy, throw this shit out." And I was like, "Nah, I like that I stole it. Like I want it in here now."
That's very funny because like I was walking today, as I do every day, and I walked by a JD Vance sign, and I felt like, God damn it, I really feel like I should steal one of these. And sometimes I do stop in like public places. I going into somebody's yard at 43 years old and stealing their yard sign seems like, I don't know, seems like trouble, really, is what I'm saying. Like I could actually get in real trouble or shot or something. But I keep seeing all these JD Vance.
I don't know. I'd still be doing it at 43. I can't see myself ever stopping.
Yeah, I see the JD Vance signs everywhere, and I hate them. It just that guy makes me really mad. He's one of those guys that's running for office that like I don't pay attention to a lot of the races and stuff like that. You know, I got people I want to win, and I got people that I think would be better if they won, but in all honesty, most of the time don't know who anybody is. But JD Vance is so kind of famous that I want to steal his signs. And
okay,
I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I will steal some JD Vance signs.
You gotta do it. But I gotta ask you, Brian,
such a bad
are you
influence.
actually registered to vote? Are you gonna go vote?
Am I gonna vote? Shit. I'm trying to think here. Give me 1 second here. Champing? That's the hardest name. Said, "What's up, Brian? My name's Chris. I'm a plumber at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. I'm in the middle of a grievance with the management for retaliation for standing up for my union contract rights. Callers and people you've had on the show sharing their experiences with union fights help give me the courage to stand up to these motherfuckers. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. And also for the calls, appreciate that. But God, that's it is like one of those things of like, I should be stealing yards. I mean, I steal fucking everything else all day.
Yeah.
When I go to the grocery store, I'm always stealing. Yeah. I don't know why I don't there aren't any in actually my neighborhood either. And I feel like my neighborhood would be safer to do it in. There is one down the street that says sick of the shit, vote Republican. That one I should steal.
There was a billboard in our town that they just had to take down because a bunch of people kept like throwing shit at it, and from my understanding, someone tried to light it on fire and nearly killed themselves. So now it's like getting taken down. But there was a billboard in our town that just says, "Are you tired of it? Vote Republican." And it's just because there's like a bunch of Democrat ones that are like, protect democracy, protect reproductive rights, and that one's just, are you sick of it? Just no fucking platform.
The Democrat ones are super funny too, because it's like protect democracy, and then you look online and you'll see like conservatives saying Nancy Pelosi said not to worry about gas prices, to worry about protecting democracy. And you know what? I'm going to tell you the truth. That is fucking effective. You know what I mean? Because I look at it and I'm like, if Nancy Pelosi and them are really fucking saying like, complaining about gas prices is somehow problematic, and that like you have to vote for like this and that, it's like, man, I mean, we got to be worrying about gas prices. I just gas prices drive me are I don't even there's pain at the pump, Bear. Is just
Gas
pain at the
prices aren't
pump.
even that bad around here. I can't imagine what
Really?
you guys are
It's
going through. I'm not even paying $3 a gallon.
oh yeah, it's 3.50 a gallon. But outside of the city, though, Crust Monk said I see Joe and the Ho fucking everywhere. Yeah, I see a lot of Joe and the Ho shirts. When I was in Gatlinburg, every 3 people had a Joe and the Ho shirt. It's so crazy that people wear those in public. They would never. They aren't they the same people that complain because rap is about bitches and hoes, and then they just walk around with a shirt
Oh my
that's
God,
calling the vice president a hoe?
Brian. I got okay. You know the Anvil shirt that you guys released that says "Steal More Shit" on it.
Yeah.
I wore that. I pre-ordered it. I've been wearing it. Great shirt, by the way. I wore it into a gun store because I was gonna buy a gun, and they told me to leave like immediately. I didn't even think about it, but they were like, "Get the fuck out of my store."
Yeah, you don't want to hand a guy like a gun. Like, can I look at that gun with a shirt that says "Steal More Shit" on it? Might make him a little bit nervous.
Yeah,
Man.
that's kind of like my brain didn't even like process it. I'm wearing my IWW hoodie and a shirt that says "Steal More Shit," and I'm like, "Can you hand me some guns, please?" That's a great idea. Like
Acid,
I don't really know what
the
my thought
acid,
process was there.
the Acid Horizon podcast says the Beanie Babies kiosk is pure Let's Go branding gear now. Now that is what I noticed too. Like every kiosk that exists is extremely Let's Go branded, and you know what? The reason they're going to lose is because of gas prices. I listen. You can come in here and you can say they can't do anything about gas prices. That don't fucking matter to people. Gas prices is what like it the stuff that the stuff that like happens the way that they explain like well they can't do anything about it and it's like yeah but I mean, we pretty much think they can. Like I still think it's like, come on, they can fix gas prices. How fucking hard could it be?
We've
Oh,
seen like a hard
Lula.
pull.
What was that?
What?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I
I
cut
was
you
gonna
off
say
there.
we've seen like a hard pull as far as like actual like number of people go. About there's been a lot more people who are willing to vote now and who are voting Democrat. So I think we'll see a lot of Democrats actually winning. But on the other hand, I kind of don't want them to. Because as far as actual progress getting made and like mutual aid getting set up and social programs and like real change and people reading actual theory and stuff like that, we've seen such a vast increase in that in the past 2 years compared to like the past 50,
Yeah, I mean, I've
Like,
always said this, and I'm not like an accelerationist or anything, but like people really are more willing to take to the streets when their party isn't in power. Is it's always
yeah,
that. I mean, you don't I mean, you're not seeing because Joe Biden's president, and this happened in 2011 too. Like we started Street Fight in 2011, and I kind of talked about how I was like really, really, really let down by Obama and all these. There was this crew of like libs on Twitter that were just mostly assholes that wanted to be like abusive to people, so they would go on there and yell at you for not wanting to vote for Obama, and I don't know, that rubbed me the wrong way in a way. Not just because it like rubs me the wrong way for people to say you should just take on faith that this is going to be good. Like, because what happens if the Republicans are there? But I watched Occupy Wall Street just totally decimated after once the Obama campaign started. Like people just fucking went home. They weren't they weren't
yeah.
out there really doing shit. And then people just had to go home and they voted and nothing happened and that just always keeps happening. And I do really hate the idea of I do really hate the idea of saying like voting doesn't matter, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think. I just, if you can get some good people in there, like AOC or something like that, I think it would, if she was able to do things. But like, we get these people elected, and then all we hear about is how they can't do things, and not being able to do things. Like, that's what I signed you up for, was to fucking do things. I wanted you to do things. Joe Biden, I wanted you to do things. And I'm a baby that throws a tantrum. I'm throwing a tantrum. And that is what I am. Like, I can't help it if I watch the Democrats piss away a majority, and then I'm supposed to just be like, well, yeah, they wanted to do the right thing,
Yeah. The way that I view it, though, right now, because I am actually going to vote this year. It's the first time I ever gave a shit about voting. And it's because of a thing that my uncle said. And my uncle's like a massive fucking Bernie bro, right? I keep trying to get him to listen to this show, but he won't. So if you're out there, hail after. If not, never mind. But
people just listen to stuff on their time. Like, you could see him listening, finding it, and then saying like, oh, hey, I found this show. I mean, that's how people are. I have had people tell me to watch a movie, and I'll fucking watch the movie like 6 years later, and they'll be like, I'll be like, that movie was really great. And they're like, I told you. And I was like, yeah, I waited until I wanted to fucking watch the movie.
But he was like, you're right. He finally was like, you're right. Democrats don't do shit. But on the other hand, they don't do shit. Isn't it better to put it in stasis than to make it like actively worse,
Yeah.
And like,
I agree.
You have to kind of admit that it's right.
It's right. It's 100% right. It's they're not going to do shit, but they're not going to, fucking turn schools into oil fields or whatever. I don't know. That was like the worst improv I've ever done. But you know what I mean? Like, they're just
I don't know. I might actually be in favor of turning schools into oil fields, Get some unions going between these like elementary schoolers.
Get that get them gas prices down. But I just, I mean, I'll go, I generally will walk over, I will vote, and then I will like not think about it at all for the rest of the night. And I don't ever know like what I'm doing. I just sort of like, I'm not passionate. Voting is like no work at all. It's zero. It's nothing. And you can just fucking go in there and do it and be done with it. You're not supposed to be done. Like, our thing is that, like, if you vote and that's all you do, that's nothing. That's kind of less than nothing. But if you do it and you also organize, then that might be actually that or organize, do the things that you're trying to do, these Starbucks unions, and pretty soon I hear there's going to be a Chili's union. I'm pressuring you into doing that, Bear. That's what I was saying.
I'm quitting Chili's.
Where are you going?
I'm like gone. I'm getting that's part of the life stuff I've been getting together. I'm going to a Honda dealership to be a car maintenance guy.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say salesperson, and I was like, no, don't do it, don't do it, Bear.
No, not again. Do you remember when I did the roof sales job that I had for 2 days? And on the second day, I walked out, and the guy called me, and I was like, "Yeah, I know this is bullshit."
Yeah.
Let me tell you something funnier I found out about that, Brian. He apparently put me on speakerphone in front of all the other employees, right?
Yeah.
Because he thought he was going to pull me back in. I found this out later because I ran into one of the other guys that went to the thing, right?
Yeah.
He put me on speakerphone because he thought he was going to pull me back into the grift and like make an example out of me. But instead, I told him how it was stupid and bullshit, and how it's like a massive fucking scam, and sales is fucking stupid, and that we need to like do like real labor and actually contribute to our society and communities. And apparently, 2 more people, including the guy I ran into later, got up and walked out of the room too.
I mean, I like you at a car dealership. I'll say that. I think car dealership seems like a place where actually you will be able to call. Like, definitely your calls will be funny because you'll be working with car salespeople, and they're wild. And also, like, I'm really proud of you because you're getting out of the line of fire. You know, you're getting out of the
Yeah.
customer world, which that is everybody who works. I feel like that's their dream. Hey, I just don't want to deal with customers no more.
Yeah, step 1 is stop dealing with customers, and step 2 is get salary. Right? Those are the 2 steps to like the
Yeah,
worker's dream.
I think
Stop
I do
talking to
feel like
people and get out of hourly.
I do think there's a step 3 in that, like, I think like if you're fully realized as like that sort of a worker, and I never got this. I didn't make it there. I this happened for me before I got the chance, but my own desk it was a total dream for me. Like all I wanted was my own desk, and I never got it.
Really?
I tried, and yeah, for me it was salary or a high hourly wage, a desk so I didn't have to be outside. And then like, you know, the I didn't that the other issue is I don't think there was a job for me in that. Like, the other issue was no uniform. But also I think I wanted no I I think I not only didn't want no uniform, but I think I also wanted like no dress code. So I'd be able to come in
Dude,
my like
okay.
t-shirt and jeans.
I have a little life hack for this if you're willing to go through the time and effort, right? I got what I do to get out of the uniforms mostly, right? I don't really care about like shirts or whatever, but I fucking hate having to wear jeans and dress pants. Like, I can't do it, right? I only wear cargo pants ever. I own 16 pairs of the exact same type of cargo pants, right?
Yeah.
So what I did was I went and got a diagnosis for OCD, which I probably actually have, but I definitely made it seem like I had it to the therapist I saw twice, and got a diagnosis for it. And now I put that down on like my job applications. Like, oh yeah, by the way, I have really bad OCD. I can only wear this exact type of cargo pants. Don't worry, I'll like keep them clean and shit, but I have to wear these pants. And they're like,
that is,
yeah, sure, whatever, who cares?
God, that is like me back in when I worked at Chuck E. Cheese. Me and my friends used to love to drive around and get high on Friday night. That was like kind of the Friday night thing, was go buy a quarter or a half ounce and drive around in my friend's 79 Nova around town. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I really hate that this happens, but my mom has visitation of me on Friday and Saturday every 2 weeks, and it just happens to be on payday. And also, my mom lived in Kansas, and I was 17 years old. So I don't even think, but it worked. They fucking didn't. They had me off every other weekend because I had to go to my 17-year-old ass had to go to fucking visitation with my mom that I hadn't seen in like 6 years. It was genius, though. I've always been very proud of that.
Luckily for me, I am just enough that I can claim that as exemption for Fridays and Sundays. I don't work either of those days. Not particularly
you don't
because
work Friday or
of any
Sunday?
actual religious belief. I just don't wanna.
Yeah. Well, that was mine. It was like, I don't want to work on payday. I think I requested a day off for payday and felt what it was like to get your check and be off. And I was like, yeah, I got to do something where I can have this all the fucking time. That would be the best for me. I love the OCD thing. I I wonder if other listeners could pull it off. You know, Street Fight listeners are cargo pants people. So they'd probably like, or I guess it's cargo pants are also. I would say cargo pants are closer to dress pants than jeans, so they're probably cool with it. It's like at least he's not wearing jeans or whatever,
At
or it
Chili's,
might be a
you
jeans
have to
job.
wear jeans. At
That's in a
Chili's,
t-shirt.
the
Is it a
dress code
t-shirt?
strictly states. Yeah, it strictly states like dark blue jeans and a t-shirt. Not black jeans, not acid wash jeans. They have to be dark blue and a company provided t-shirt. But I argue for the OCD so hard that I wear cargo pants and a hoodie every day and they don't say shit.
That is so god tier. That is so fucking cool, Bear. That is my favorite thing
I
ever.
don't even
So
I've had customers think I'm a customer because I don't even look like I'm working there. I'm just walking in the back looking like a madman.
So I want to know, obviously, don't disappear on us again. We need to know if you get the job at the Honda dealership and you can celebrate the Honda days. I mean, that's probably going to make like a lot more than at Chili's, right?
Okay, this is if you guys want to know how broke I am, I'm going to disclose some actual numbers here. If I get
Oh,
the
I
job
like
at the
that.
Honda dealership, I will go from making 20,000 a year to 31,000 a year, and that's such a massive jump to me that my mind is fucking blown.
It's crazy though that like car maintenance. Are you doing? Because my brother did this years ago. Detailing. Are you doing detailing or are you doing like oil changes?
No, I'm doing like oil, tire, brakes, and transmission fluids, and like battery and stuff. So
Okay.
anything that doesn't actively involve like line replacement, I will be doing.
Okay. That shouldn't be too hard. Oil change probably the hardest thing you're gonna have to do there. And that's probably not too bad. I mean, tires kind of a pain in the ass, but we can all do that.
The huge
especially
bonus,
with the air tools.
The huge bonus for me is fucking I fucking loved my 2000 Honda Civic, and I actually, when my dad decided to scrap it, I kept the like clicker thing for it, and so I still have it even though I don't have the car. And so when I went in for the job interview, for the first interview, it's totally like the cheesiest move I've ever pulled in a job interview. They asked me why they should hire me, and I pulled my little keys out of my pocket, and I started to tear up a little bit, holding the clicker, talking about how dearly I love this car. And they were
Bear, you're
like,
the goat.
And they were like, "We'll call you in 2 days with a follow-up."
That is incredible, Bear. That is you are the greatest job interviewer, I think. Because I would have never thought to cry. But I get the tears crying. I actually was watching Mancow videos today. I'll probably be playing this on Shocktober this week where he cried twice. Fake cried though. It was not real crying. But yeah, he's crying. That is so fucking funny, Bear. That is excellent.
If you can cry on command, it is a baller move to pull out during job interviews.
Well, it's a baller move to pull out like really anytime. You could, I mean, that's another like, because you don't want to be yelling at cashiers, but like maybe if you cried at them, you know what I mean? Like, oh God, I don't know what else they'll give you your stuff for free. Like crying can get you, especially crying in front, at least for me. Like anytime somebody cries in front of me, I just want them to have whatever it is that they wanted. And I want them to not cry in front of me. Like that's all I want is don't cry in front of me. Fuck it, you got the job. It's probably what I would have said.
Yeah. I am
I'm so uncomfortable.
literally from like I got a buddy that works there, and he was like, I don't know what the hell you did, but basically all you got to do is pass a drug test, which I can do for the first time in my life.
Oh, you wait, yeah, but then you can start getting like really on drugs, because you'll be making an extra $11,000 a year. I can't believe car maintenance people only make $31,000 a year. I mean, it's going to be a lot more
Yeah.
money. It's probably going to be an extra $100, but it feels like that feels to me like a $20 an hour job to me.
I'll be making 15 an hour.
Not bad. I feel like it should be a little bit more. I still feel like it should be a little bit more than like what is the accepted sort of minimum wage now, which is $15 an hour. And in Columbus, I'm seeing a lot of places hiring for $18 an hour now. And I'm just surprised that but you're in a smaller part, like you're in a place with a lower cost of living, and also you're not in a major city.
That's true. I do live in bumfuck Georgia, which is the best part of Georgia in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I love it down there. It's warm all year. So, well, Bear, I got
actually
calls
hate
in
that.
the queue. That's the thing I like. I would go warm. But I got callers here. I want to thank you for calling. It's good to hear from you, and keep us posted on your crying job. Your job at the crying factory.
Hell yeah.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good night,
it's
man.
Good to hear from you. God, Bear is fucking funny. Bear does not fuck around when it comes to getting a job. Also, Bear has said that they actually will take any job in the world. So let's pick up this next call. Next call. Hey, you're talking to Brian. Who am I talking to?
Brian, this is Craig from the Acid Horizon podcast, and I'm also on Zero Books. What's up, man?
What is up? How are you? What is the sorry. People know that I'm a flubber, especially lately when I'm talking about Small Green Men from Star Wars. That Small Green Man from Star Wars that I fucked his name up several times. But so what's up? What do you guys do?
Your tweets. We do a left theory philosophy podcast. Right now I'm the content coordinator for Zero Books. And, the reason that I called in tonight is, I've been listening to Street Fight Radio for a long time, and you were one of the inspirations for me to get into podcasting, and now we're doing pretty well. And I'm kind of doing this in a full-time capacity right now because of guys like you. So I just wanted to give you a huge shout out for that.
That's really fucking cool. I mean, like, I always think about that with like with me. It's like if I could like talk to the people that inspired me. Well, I wouldn't want to talk. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't mind talking to like Howard Stern, but I wouldn't want to talk to Opie and Anthony or anything. But yeah, the people that inspired me were like those guys doing like radio. So it's really exciting that like, or for me, a lot of times that the idea that we kind of inspired by some of the nastiest shit in the world kind of helped to create like a new way of doing radio. Also, I love theory. I'm a theory boy. I read a lot of theory. I got to ask you, I don't know if you've read it.
Yeah.
Is it about reading theory, or is it about making your own?
Well, I mean, typically we're just reading older texts. Most of the guys who are on our show are typically working in like a lot of French post-structuralist theory, anarchist theory. We do a lot of stuff on Marx too. But actually, I have my master's degree in philosophy, and I did more of the analytic strain of philosophy, which is something that people maybe they don't know about me, but actually that's the tradition that I've come from. But behind the scenes, I read more of the continental theory, and then, the more radical stuff too.
Yeah. The thing that really, I don't know, got me where I am politically now and the reason I talk a lot about stuff, I don't talk about this often, but when I was in college, I got a sociology degree, but
Oh, right on.
like, so I took a shit ton of sociology and stuff, and one of my teachers had me read this Pierre Bourdieu book
Oh,
called
right on.
Distinction,
Okay.
I think. And that thing fucking blew
I haven't
my
read it, but
mind. It changed everything for me. It literally, like, I was one way the day before I read it, and I was another way the day after. Like, and everything I do is filtered through reading that book. And
yeah.
it
When
was
I was
so
in
important.
yeah, when I was in community college, I mean, I knew that I was going to get into something, related to theory and what have you. But on the last day of my introductory class, the teacher pulled me aside and said, "Here, I want you to take this." And she just gave me the Marx Engels reader right there. And I mean, it probably sat on my bookshelf for like 2 or 3 years before I picked it up. But on that day, she gave me a rundown. She basically just gave me a list of names, Michel Foucault, and so on and so on. And she just like went down the list. And so that when I ran across these things in college and in bookstores and stuff, I was already primed for it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that I had been looking for a way. I think I'd been spending a lot of time looking for a way that, like, what I was because I started college to do political science because I had recently kind of gotten interested in electoral politics and shit like that, and I had just it had kind of turned into this thing where I was like, yeah, I care about politics, so I'm going to go for political science. I took 2 political science classes, and I was like, nah, this actually wasn't what I was talking about, what I wanted to do. So I finished my community college courses, and I decided to go to Ohio State as an English major because I don't know. I don't know if I wanted to, like, I wasn't ready to admit that, like, I really just wanted to be doing sociology. And then I took one theology class during that semester as an English major, and that's the book we read. We didn't read the whole book. We read excerpts from Distinction, and I like the teacher kind of explained habitus to me, your habitus, which is a word that he kind of came up that is like uh uh that he kind of came up with, that is like basically describes like you in a way. Jason, there's a spammer in there wanting to date me online, but it was how you how you project yourself to people and what that says about your politics. And like it kind of blew me away because I had been in this place where, like, for a lot of my life I'd been acting I had been acting in a way that wasn't consistent with me, and that, like, I really wanted to be like the guy that, like, reads literature and knows all about it, and the guy that, like, is just like super and like an intellectual that like is into like experimental film and stuff like that. But every experimental film I saw, pretty much every indie movie I saw, I, one, didn't understand, 2, didn't like. I hated it. I was like, this fucking sucks. And like hearing that was like, I'm doing this because I'm trying to project that I am high class, and I literally don't care if I'm high class. You know what I mean? Like, and once I read that, it just changed everything about me.
So when you were in community college, you and I are about the same age. I'm 45, and I'm like, you didn't get Marx in a community college, and surprisingly, when I completed my bachelor's degree, I didn't do any of that in political theory. I mean, we were doing other stuff. We were doing Heidegger, of all things, the fucking Nazi, right? But it wasn't until after college that came, into my life, and I think it had something to do with kind of the sign of the times, maybe, and maybe where we grew up, and that's also perhaps the reason why my anthropology teacher just kind of like gave it to me under the desk, like, here, we can't teach this stuff here, but take it home with you.
Yeah. But Mochi in the chat said Brian hated Garden State. Thank you. I did hate Garden State. I bought it though. I bought all those movies to put on DVD to display in my living room. What DVDs I was like, that I was more intelligent than a cable guy. If that makes any sense. Is that like I'm a cable guy, I install cable, and I have this thing in my mind where whenever somebody sees a cable guy, he has to, like, you know, be into fucking sports and like all this stuff, which I am into sports, but I was hiding that too. And like I just didn't want to be what I was. And I was trying to tell people that I'm not that. This isn't me. I'm just a guy that, like, I'm really intelligent for a cable guy, you know? Like I wanted people to think that, and it took me one semester of college to like really like to talk about pop culture as like a way that we display to talk about pop culture as a way that we display our politics and our place in life was what really that Bordeaux did that really hit me, because I could never figure it out. And then as soon as I heard it, it's like, absolutely. Like if I go around and tell people that I like the Fast and the Furious, they're going to think I'm just some normal idiot guy. And then like so I didn't do that. I told people I liked other stuff, and I displayed other stuff in my home. And it was just so important to me to hear that, like, no, you're programmed. Like you're kind of programmed to do that. You know, my parents were very much like, my parents were really funny in that they didn't want us to say the word ain't because they thought it made us look like white trash. And like, so my parents they really hated our station in life as like this kind of lower to middle class to lower middle class family. They wanted to be high up there. So I was always sort of in that same elite, trying to be an elitist when I was broke as fuck. I was going to the payday advance place every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? There was just so much. Big Hal, Donnie, right. Hal's here. Hey, I'm talking to you at noon tomorrow, brother. Yeah, so I think I just bored you. No, but that was as boring as possible.
No, that's cool though. I mean, my dad, he worked in the steel industry. My mom was on and off in like waitress jobs. They had no clue what I was getting into. There's just no context for them to understand what it was. And I mean, clearly some of these professors are ushering in radical ideas through the back door. At least in the late 90s, they were, at least the ones that I had encountered. And you know, and I've actually taught philosophy in the prison. And the thing that I like about it is I'm the kind of person who, if I get the sense that people think there's a kind of an elitism, you know, behind the theory or the concept, I want to port them away from that. And I want to honor, for example, like, you know, like you like the Fast and the Furious, you know, we all have these pleasures, guilty or not. It's like, that's part of, I don't think the need to like sort of honor this sort of like elitist trend, you know, that happens in academia. In fact, I'd much rather vibe with the person who's into the Fast and Furious, in the fucking video games, and like this one book by Pierre Bourdieu. That's my vibe.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of, you know, I obviously had to read a ton of shit to get the degree, but that was the thing that fucking hit me like super fucking hard. I read a lot of Capital and Orientalism by Edward Said was a big fucking deal for me. Like that's another one that made me see the world in a way. You know what book really made me see the world in a different way? And I guarantee you've read it. It's so hacky, but Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. You know that? Have you read that?
Yeah, I've only read a bit of it. Not the whole thing, but like an excerpt.
It's completely it's been out forever. So I don't want people to be like don't spoil it, but it is like, I don't know, like it changes how you look at history when you when you see this, because the gist of the book is like all this shit happens in the book, and then on the fucking last page of the book it is this guy's I mean, this guy you've been following in a book is like dying this hero's death and all this shit, and then at the end of the book they say, and it was one sentence in a history book written by white people. Like this guy's whole life that was so fucking important only ended up being one sentence that was written in by colonists who came there to sort of take his land. And like that was where it really clicked for me that like history is subjective. If that history was subjective, because I don't think I understood that. I really thought history was an objective thing that you kind of learn the facts of it, and that you can't fake that, you know. And then I learned from that book was just like, oh shit. I made my daughter I don't make anybody do shit. My daughter read things fall apart, and so did my wife, and they were just fucking blown away by it. Like they even were like, yeah, I mean, and that's what Said does too. Edward Said does is like makes you think. Like, fuck, man, everything I've been taught my whole life is slanted one way.
Yeah, if you ever have the hankering to get back into theory, Labor Kyle, who's a good friend of mine, and the podcast is in the chat talking about Said and Frantz Fanon. I'm not sure if you've read Wretched of the Earth, but the first essay in that will just fucking destroy you on violence.
Yeah, I'll have to read it. I haven't in a long time read pretty much anything. I am like way more of an idiot than I was before the pandemic, but I do have to read some stuff. So I would love to do that. Well, I gotta get this last call.
What? Well, I'll just say before I go, I'll stay in touch with you. Maybe we'll just like read an essay sometime. You pop on the podcast, you give us your 2 cents, and we'll go through it. Or we'll have you on Zero Books. Right now I'm the content coordinator for them, and we can do a little profile of the show and talk some theory.
I would love it. Let me know. Now, I'm going to warn you, I'm doing this on the air. I don't know why. I'm taking a month off in December, so I have to record 14 extra podcasts on top of the ones that I'm doing. So, but I think I can probably make time. I'm just doing like five to 6 podcasts for Street Fight a week so that I can have time off. But I'll come.
Yeah, no,
you just let me know.
I'm speed running podcasts right now too, so that I can have 2 weeks off at the end of the year. But we'll do something in January or February.
See, it was the thing with me. The reason it's a month is because last year I took a month and it was really nice, and this year I have a lot of work to do that I've been putting off since August. So there's a bunch of things I got to get done to check off my list.
I just thought of something. Have you read Roland Barthes' essay in the book Mythologies on wrestling? Let's do that. That's what we got to do. Yeah, that'll be solid.
All right. Well, let me know. Get a hold of me,
Brian,
and I'm in.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling.
Right, cool. Hey, it was
Acid
great to
Horizon
talk
podcast.
Yep, it was great to finally talk to you. Big ups to you, and you've been an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace. All right, we're gonna pick up this last call. I'm gonna go lay in my bed probably, and I've been watching horror movies this weekend. We watched Barbarian. We watched Pearl, and last night we watched Nope. If I had to pick, it's very hard for me to pick what my favorite one was. I liked Pearl quite a fucking bit. Like I loved Pearl, and I liked Barbarian and Nope, but I have to say Pearl is Pearl's my favorite one I watched. What an incredible fucking movie. I liked X too. But I just thought Pearl was great. And I like what they were doing with that movie. And I will definitely be there for the sequel to X, the Maxine. And I'm very excited for it. I love that movie. But it's funny. My wife fucking freaked out. My wife like is so weirded out by Barbarian. Like it very, very possible that we don't stay in an Airbnb ever again. Like, all right, let's get this last call in. I'm gonna go to bed. All right, last caller. Who am I talking to?
Hey, it's Sean in LA. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Sean? How are you?
Good. AKA Jerry on Twitter. Shock Jock reply, dude. What's going on?
How you doing?
Yeah, I got the Macho Man avatar. Yeah. Big Shock Jock head.
Nice. So you've been checking out Shocktober this year?
Oh yeah. It's amazing. It's
the Bob
great.
and Tom
Bob
episode.
And Tom was just. Oh God, fuck man.
Might be my favorite Shocktober episode, but the show was terrible.
Yeah, that was really bad, dude. Like the Brokeback Mountain references and that just really just nasty mid 2000s, just like homophobia and the Toast song. It just
What a weird time. What a weird time it was that like Brokeback Mountain is this movie that came out that was very good and like people really enjoyed it.
Right.
And every single comic had to have like a take on it and they were all like nasty. Yeah. Like none of them were like, I just thought it was I mean, I think at the time I was listening to Ron and Fez and I don't think they were super nasty about it. And I think Ron liked it.
No.
But as far as like all the other guys, and like I said, this milk toast, Bob and Tom is, for lack of a better term, a very milk toast show. And I was so shocked to hear that. Especially if you compare it. I'm sorry about that. Especially if you compare it to the other stuff that we play, where it's like, okay, this is supposed to be the nice version. Like the thing where I would say like, see, it's possible to be a shock jock without, being nasty. And it's like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually not possible to be a shock jock without being nasty.
Yeah, and that, like, I was in high school in the mid 2000s around that time, and that was they have the pastiche and like the aesthetic of just like middle America, just very average kind of morning zoo. I think Chris kind of alluded to, they sound like morning zoo guys. They sound like somebody that Opie and Anthony would sick their fans on to go during Jocktober, real vanilla.
That didn't happen. I'm going to tell you why that didn't happen. Because Bob and Tom isn't like a show that they can fuck with. It's not like it's
True.
I'm trying to think of how to put this. Like
True.
That Bob and Tom at that time is doing way fucking better than Opie and Anthony at the time of Jocktober. If that makes sense. Like Opie and Anthony are just on XM. They never fucked with anybody who had super high ratings. I guess like Stern, but it was hard to get into the Stern show, like to call in. And I mean, the funny thing is like Bob and Tom is kind of a show that they could have I don't know. I wonder if they picked the shows that were going to have their fans sick 'em on, so that like they were shows that it wouldn't happen back to them. So when you're shitting on a morning zoo on like a easy listening station, and then you call and you goof on the host of this morning zoo or this light rock station, it like their listeners aren't going to call back, and then they would sort of say like,
Yeah, right.
and they would say, oh, they don't want to call, you know what I mean? Oh, they didn't want to they were too scared to call. Or one person would call in and say like, what's going on? And they would act like, see, we let them all in. But like the only show I've ever heard of all of the shows that I cover, to not have phone screeners is Bubba the Love Sponge. The rest of them all had good phone screeners. And again, Opie and Anthony weren't going to pick fights with people that were way more popular than them.
Yeah. Oh, their entire MO was punching down. I mean, Opie, Anthony, they were such cowards, and well, they still are too. And I've been listening to a lot of Bobo clips. I don't know if you're familiar, but
Yeah. Oh yeah.
my God, man, some of those are in 2022 are brutal to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, their sort of thing was punched down. But I mean, all of it was that too. You know, like Stern was also
True.
kind of punched down, and like all those guys did
Oh
that.
yeah.
And I just think most comedy did that at that time too. The notion
Yeah.
of punching up is so fucking new at this point. I think, you know, obviously there are a lot of people in here that listen to this show or that are in the chat that would have been on the right side of things and thought that the comedy was all a little too, you know, homophobic or racist or whatever. But like you know, I would say there's probably a lot more people who, if they're at least white, straight, and male, and probably had a lot of that, like enjoyed a lot of that stuff when it was happening, because you know nobody ever the phrase punch down, I just never heard it ever, until, you know, 5 years ago. And then I once I learned what it was, I was like, oh yeah, I don't think I want to punch down. And that's what taught me how kind of to shake that, whatever that idea of Opie and Anthony was. But I think I've said this on Shocktober a few times. I mean, I set out to make leftist Opie and Anthony, and I failed at it and made something else.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No. Yeah. So I grew up in Florida, North Florida too, and the super hillbilly part of it is just the shitty conservative part. And one of the shows that was big around there, I don't know if you've ever listened to. Do you ever listen to any Lex and Terry stuff?
Yes, I know who Lex and Terry are. I don't think I've ever gone, because I never decided to do their show. But at some point in the future, I think Lex and Terry might make it, because after Bob and Tom, that was sort of a revelation that it was like, oh man, you know, maybe some of this stuff is worth looking into. Lex and Terry, though, might not. The issue with the guys like Lex and Terry is that you can't find archives of their stuff. Like there's a lot of people that people ask me to cover, but like if there's no sort of archive, then I can't find the stuff. And like, so when you Google Lex and Terry, you get Opie and Anthony goofing on Lex and Terry, and then I guess there's a lot of stuff. The other issue would be is when I'm doing a show, I also need old clips, you know? So that's the other thing is I need older clips of the show when it was in its heyday. And then, but they seem like, yeah, I'm looking at their YouTube page. I could probably make something out of Lex and Terry. Oh yeah, there's a picture of them popping a zit on Lex's taint. So yeah, I think I could probably figure something out here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was super trashy. It was very regional to the South in particular, big in the Panhandle, like the Gulf Coast area, super just like biker kind of white trash. Honestly, like not too dissimilar to Bubba. Really, it's they're big in Florida.
Yeah.
So I think you could. I think you'd have some raw material to put on the assembly line with them, but I haven't listened myself in a long time.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for calling. I am going to go to bed, but please, I hope you like the Mancow episode. It'll be out this Friday. And then also, as I've said, there's a wrap up this year. So we'll have a wrap up this year.
Sweet. Yeah. And tomorrow I'm going for as Dad Vibes Fred Durst to Halloween. So I'm excited about that.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool as hell. We'll have a good time.
Hell yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, buddy.
Okay, all you ghouls and goblins and creepy crawlies. It's time for me to climb in my bed, snuggle up to my wife, and watch something. And I don't know what it's going to be. It won't be a movie because she's in this thing where she wants to go to bed by 10:30. But and there's nothing to watch anyway. Who fucking cares? But nobody cares what I'm watching. I will see you all this week. I want everybody to know that the Thursday show this week is with a comedian named Ryan Williams. He did an album called Manual Labor of Love. It's really fucking good. You can hear it on Spotify, and he is very funny, and I think you all are really gonna like him. Ryan Williams this week on Shocktober. Manual Labor of Love. Listen to it. It's very good. Bye-bye, everybody.